get started here. All right, let's have a quick little chat about next war Vietnam, because it's kind of fun. All right, let's see where we want to start here. And I think actually what I want to do is give a kind of, not really a review, but just kind of a play notes for what's going on in the game, where we're at. You know, I'm trying to ascertain value of continuation versus resetting and start again, or putting it away, do something different. We'll see, right? So no big deal either way. Just thought it would be worthwhile doing that and having a chat. So the reason why I wanted to do that is because I had a couple of interesting interactions with the rules and with some of the game mechanics, and it gave me this idea that, hey John, good to see you, my friend. It gave me the idea that this game is very much like an onion that needs to be peeled back one layer at a time to fully appreciate the gameplay, and that's often lost if you're playing solo, number one, and number two, if you're playing with folks that are like super experienced with the game, where they're just kind of like clicking through stuff and making things happen, and I've played with a couple of guys like that in, you know, out of town, or I've seen them play, and there's some pause required here for reflection when you're playing these types of games. Hey, Richard, good to see you, bud. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm probably more interested in talking about the game mechanics that I understand, as I think I understand them, correct or otherwise, than I am with say, you know, doing any sort of critique on the game. That's not what this is going to be. So here's an interesting little experience that, let me see if I can just zoom in a bit without getting all freaky. Whoa, kind of like that. Yeah. So in the sequence of play, there are flip over to that first strike phase. In a non-initiative turn, for example, and we can talk about what that is at some other point, but if I've got an aircraft or indeed a helo unit, there are a number of different things that I can choose to do with it in the strike phase. And with an aircraft, I could interdict a hex, which will add a cost to the movement. I could fly a mission against some ships. I could fly a strike mission against a detected unit, whether that be an HQ or a supply unit or an artillery unit or a combat unit. I could do a strike against an airfield. And there are all sorts of different things I can do. And depending on what I choose to do and how I choose to do that, can have subsequent impact upon the gameplay and the choices that your opponent has, and the choices you have, because you only have so many of these units to use in a given turn. And so with this unit here, for instance, this USAF F-16 unit, I have really only three aircraft that I don't know why that unit is there. It should be in the flown box. 3 units left that can conduct a mission in what's ostensibly called the strike phase. So do I want to use that to do CAS, to do ground support if I'm attacking, or if I'm being attacked? Do I want to put a strike on a unit and see what effect that has? Because putting a strike on a unit, whether it's via an HQ attack over here or with a helo, a strike 1 is going to drop your combat factors down by 1 and your efficiency rating down by 1. And now that's going to even up the odds a little bit when these guys come calling to attack you, or if you're trying to attack me. So for instance, we did a how did I do that strike now? I'm trying to think what I did. I think I used the aircraft. I used the helicopters, actually. I used the helos to do a strike here. Just make sure the focus is right. To do a strike here, and that all worked out really well. And we got the strike one on the unit, which then gave me the opportunity to consider attacking this unit. It's in the middle of clearing that hex and having a lot of trouble. But I could then bring these units are on the road here, but there's 9 factors, and I had another unit somewhere. Where did it go? Maybe there were only 9 factors. 9 factors attacking 1 now versus 2, and a differential of 5 versus 4. Yeah, 5 versus 4. And so that's going to give me a much better combat result. And then I bring the A10s in to support the attack. The PRC can, of course, support this as well. They can support their guys, but they're going to get intercepted by highly rated units. So they're going to have to face off against, these types of guys with standoff attacks and standoff. You can't see that, standoff attacks, or I could even bring the big boys in for this particular attack, and I could use this good dude that's a 6 with both long range and standoff. All right, so that's a pretty tough unit. And then we get in a dogfight. We've got a -2 on that guy, so he's going to get a bonus on his die roll there. So the Chinese decided that caution was the better part of valor in this particular instance. Didn't have any escort units they could bring to the battle, and the only units they could bring to do sort of ground support were going to be these guys with a rating of 2, which was going to mean that they'd be fighting on the +3 table. And there's a enormous chance that they're not going to actually get through, and they'll probably take a step loss, so they didn't do that. So there's a half a dozen different choices that we have. John Connor, good to see you. And let me just see who else. Jeff, good to see you, bud. And I'm trying to see who else is here. Yeah, so John, I'm gonna get to that point in a second about the Chinese versus the Vietnamese in a second. But nevertheless, keep in mind we're 2 weeks into this. Okay, so we've got the 101st Airborne has arrived. In part, we've got the 82nd Airborne is on site, and we've got units fighting in the very large infantry divisions fighting in the jungle, causing an enormous delaying action. Except, of course, as I zoom out along this coastal road where they've made pretty good progress, but nowhere near as fast as I had hoped they would, based on my play with Mitchell Land when he was the the PRC. He cruised through my meager defenses. I think I learned from that, and we played this section of the map a little bit better. But coming back to the core commentary here is so many different choices to be made. So this unit ended up dying, right? So he's off the map. These guys go back to the flown box. They survived the SAM run and all SAM Alley and all that sort of fun stuff. Keeping in mind that, of course, this turn we did a wild weasel attack. I'm trying to get that light out of the way there. The wild weasel attack on the chart here, and knock down the detection value, which is the key, right? If I can knock down detection, then it's harder to find me. It's harder to respond, which means you don't get to use your good SAMs. You get to use your shitty local SAM defensive tools and resources and stuff like that. Now, one of the challenges with the game is there is a lot going on, right? There's a lot happening on a moment-to-moment basis. There's using supply points to replace steps on headquarters, or do I repurchase or repair my air units? Do I try and bring in MSUs onto the map, mobile supply units onto the map to keep certain units in supply. Are all my guys in supply? Are the lines of supply in check? Are we doing okay? It's all pretty involved. It's not complicated, but there's so much going on. Richard, good to see you. And I think I already said hi to you, actually. Sorry about that. But anyway, so there's a bunch of stuff going on, and it really does make it pretty challenging to keep your hands around. Obviously, one of my chief pet peeves is this keeping track of everything, right? I wish that was twice the size, but you can already see that I've got that chart and these two maps, and then all these charts here that you've got to really keep track of. So you don't want to have too many large pieces of paper floating around, but I'd kind of prefer to have a blown up little exercise thing that was a little bit bigger to take advantage of, so there was more room for all the information counters that need to be on there. I really thought this was going to be an absolute whitewash for the PRC. I thought they were going to roll through this thing like a knife through hot butter, but they really struggle in the jungle because of this doubling that the infantry units receive and the halving of the combat value that the mechanized units receive. So it actually kind of forces the PRC to really pick a focal point and really kind of push pretty hard, but put enough units around the rest of the map to kind of keep the Vietnamese honest. If we look at the unit quality between the two forces, there's really most of the units, I'm just looking now, most of the units are kind of like these sort of regional units here. They have a rating of 4, an efficiency rating of 4, a defense value of 3. Those types of guys are pretty soft, right? They're going to immediately get 2 column shifts to the right when someone's attacking them. Benefit to the attacker, because most of these other guys are 5s or 6s, and so there's column shifts for the differences in efficiency ratings. But where the SRV kind of pick things up is that they're pretty bulky on the defense, right? Because that's like that guy's going to be a 12 in defense in the jungle. And the units that are attacking him, let's say, well, they're the Marines. We're trying to find a full strength unit. See, here's another great example of using the strikes to just prevent an attack, right? So now this guy here's got a strike 2 on him. Well, now I got to subtract 2 off that combat value, 2 off the ER, and 2 off the defense. So all of a sudden, there's no point in him even thinking about trying to attack. And this guy here, you know, he's fine. He's going in at a 6, but because, well, this is armor. But if this was infantry here, he'd be going in at a 3. This dude's going to be going in at a 2. Would be a 5 to 10 attack, or 1 to 2 attack just to start out. So pretty nasty stuff. And that's just from conducting, that was an effective helo strike by 82nd Airborne or 101st, whichever one that is. I think it was 82nd. And so that's pretty awesome, right? I was sitting here looking at the map going, what am I going to do with helos this turn? What can I do that's useful? And now that there weren't any interceptors to sort of mess with me in that regard, and the detection level was down pretty low. Excuse me, it made, I need some water. It made it, wow. Oh, that sucks. Okay. Let me just stand. Did everyone panic then? I did. All right, let me just finish having my water. At least I didn't spill it, and I have pictures so we can put stuff back in its place. All right, let's see, where were we? What was I talking about? No one has a clue. That goes there. Actually, it didn't cause too much drama. It could have been a lot worse. Well, these guys are out of space here, out of place here. Okay. All right. I think I was talking about ER ratings. Oh, the strikes. So this strike over here was particularly effective because it stopped this particular attack from going through this turn. I had a HQ, this HQ here, and this is why you have a camera on a stand away and not up close to the map. Anyway, this guy was ready to pretty much be overrun, and I snuck this dude up into the situation, and then struck here and sort of blunted that attack. And my point I was making was that there was no air superiority units for the Chinese, and so they were in pretty good shape. And now it was time for the Allies to start using some of these helos and other units to advance the cause and defend the perimeter. All right. The other thing that I had experimented with a little bit was the cyber warfare stuff. And while I found that to be a lot of fun, I'm just looking here, see if... Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure my camera stays in the bracket. That's what happened there. It popped out, unfortunately. These cyber warfare units are pretty useful, but it ends up being yet another die roll that you need to make. It's another set of decisions to be making over and above anything that's going on with the ground war or the air war or the naval conflict. And you know, where do I want to use these finite resources each turn, and how do I want to use them, and where will they be most effective? And at the end of the day, if depending on who's putting what up, all right, it's going to end up being a really marginal impact, is what I found overall, unless you get to the point where one side has used up all of its cyber warfare assets and the other side has a free rein. Then you really get to be effective with them. So what I ended up doing as the Chinese was attacking with them, and as the Allies, I found it was better to just be defensive with them and be more passive and just counter the efforts that were going on. Okay, so there's that. Now, you know, the naval warfare aspect here, there's once again a lot going on, right? And I caveat here, by no means have I played all of this 100% accurately. I find the the workflow and the game flow for the naval stuff to be less than smooth. So while it's all detailed in the sequence of play, I will get to a point and go, now exactly who needs to do what and why, and before I make a roll for, you know, effect A, are there other things I need to be considering that I might want to do later in the turn for this? And I'm not really sure about the rules. So I like I said, I still don't have the muscle memory here built into the naval system here, the naval game, to really be efficient and effective with it. I think I did this invasion here correctly. I believe that we're moving these units in to take on the Spratlys. Sorry, not the Spratlys, it's the Paracels. The Paracels here, I believe that we're doing that correctly, but a bit of a challenge. Anyway, so lots of fun gameplay going on, and but I do feel that I've kind of hit the wall as the PRC in terms of the ability to sort of make an impact and start the ball rolling here in Hanoi for automatic victory rolls. We've hit the victory point threshold, but the other rule that I missed was you also have to have control of a hex here, which we have been trying to get to and have failed. You can see just how far away these guys are, and you can see this formation, 83rd Group Army, is not doing well. And I think I've got the 74th and the 81st down here, and they've just taken a pasting. They lost steps on some attacks here. They lost 2 brigades here now. 81st headquarters is out of the game. I've got to rebuild that next turn. So it's been a highly bloody effort. Finally got amphibious units into the game here to look at trying to land at the only beach zone that's available, and this Marine unit is now dead, taking step losses because of these strikes, and I just now have the 1 brigade going in against arguably 1 brigade and a battalion, but also another brigade of mighty 101st, the first 101st in the background there, with an HQ to support it, looking beefy and dangerous. So that doesn't seem like a viable option. This looks like these guys have advanced into this, actually. These guys have advanced into this hex, so that city is now not going to happen. This unit here has been isolated for 2 turns because they got overly aggressive. Kind of a bummer. Anyway, you guys are just having a fine old time, just chit-chatting amongst yourselves here, aren't you? This is great. Let's see, John Connor and John Longshore are going at it. Hey, Jeff, that's a really good question. Sorry for not answering the question sooner. No, I believe you can just play without the naval game. You can play the standard game, and I think it'll work just fine. I believe that's okay. And also, there's also a more standardized version of the, I think, let me just check. The naval rules sea control and naval rules, there's only 2 pages of those rules in the standard game. So you can play this, you can have a lot of fun with this system without the advanced rules. But if you want special forces, and if you want cruise missiles and Scuds and ballistic missiles and the air war and the carrier air wings and all the other goodies that go along with all that stuff, you really need to play the advanced game. And it's not that it's gonna break your mind, right? You know, there's the guys that are in air superiority over there. It's not gonna break your mind or anything like that. It's just involved. And I do enjoy playing solo, just sitting here noodling through, okay, well, if I did this, what would happen? If I did that, what would happen? And I can run through hypotheticals here and mess around with the units, and if I don't like the result, I can push it all back into shape and work it out. And, you know, arguably, the approach for the Chinese has not been awesome. After, you know, where they're about to have their turn 4 movement, and they really have not got very far. And it's not because I've brought in the 82nd and the 101st early or at the wrong time or anything like that. This is the only unit that's even close to an enemy unit, although the healers have been impactful this turn. It's the first turn they've been impactful. I held back the Allied air and let the Chinese have full air superiority, air supremacy actually, for the first 3 turns. So, and then only after that, on turn 3, we started fighting in the air war, and then turn 4, we really knocked out quite a few units. Anyway, thought I'd share that with you, let you guys have a look at what was going on. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Let me see. Yeah, BC Games, I am enjoying it. I love this system overall. I think it's got a lot going for it, but as I'm sort of in a very long-winded way trying to say is that there's a lot going on here, right? So we peel the onion very slowly, take your time, go watch Mitch Land's YouTube channel. It has some wonderful tutorials. on the game mechanics. I think using India, Pakistan, perhaps, or maybe Poland as the training ground. I'd highly encourage you to have a look at that and check that out and kind of go for it from there before you go for it. Anyway, look, all the best. Have a good time tonight. I'm going to keep banging away at this bad boy for the rest of turn 4, and we'll see what happens. Cheers.